Welcome to the Future 3 podcast.
Boom.
I'm Sean.
I'm Shaylin.
And I'm Cyan.
And we are the Future 3 podcast.
Today, we have a doctor in the house. But not just any doctor. She's a poop doctor. Just kidding. Today, we have a gastroenterologist and the director of advanced endoscopy at Riverview Medical Center. Please welcome Dr. Sundarajan.
Yeah.
Hi, guys. Thank you guys so much for having me. What an intro. I feel honored. I'll take both titles, by the way. I'll take poop doctor and gastroenterologist and director.
So obviously I know what a gastroenterologist is, but for those who don't know, can you please explain to us what you actually do?
No, absolutely. So, a gastroenterologist deals with basically the digestive organs of the body. In a nutshell, when you're sort of explaining it to younger kids, it deals with digestion that it starts right in the mouth and goes, just like you said, literally all the way to, into your poop. But in terms of the more scientific aspects of it, it's a doctor that deals with the digestion of the body. The gastrointestinal tract is one of the largest organs in the body, starting right from the mouth all the way to the rectal anal area. It deals with the pancreas, it deals with the liver, it deals with the stomach, it deals with the small bowel and esophagus. And that's kind of what being a GI doctor is in a nutshell.
That's a lot of different things that you have to manage. And on the topic of managing multiple things, you graduated summa cum laude, you were the top of your class, you got into the Medical Honor Society in your third year of college, and on top of all that, you've done 25 years of dance. So, the real question that I'm wondering, and I'm sure these two are wondering too, is do you ever actually sleep?
You and like half the world asks me that question. Yes, I do sleep. I think the secret to the fact that I've done a lot is, you have to figure out what gives you a sound sleep. And when I sleep, and it's a very restful sleep. But it's very weird for you to tell me about all these accomplishments because I'm like, oh yeah, I really did do all that. But a lot of it is time management and a lot of it is being passionate. And if you can kind of hone in your time management skills as to how to sort of essentially juggle different aspects of your life and multitask. And if you're passionate about what you do, whether it's my career, which is gastroenterology, whether it's my passion, which is, I love, obviously, my background as a classically trained dancer, it all kind of slowly falls into place, but it takes work. It doesn't just sort of happen. You have to essentially make it happen.
Yeah, I feel like you said before passion and you kept saying it. I feel like that's so important because you have to have that drive if you want to go into any field. Because I remember my dad saying he didn't want to go into the mortgage business when he was younger. He thought he would want to be a stockbroker on Wall Street or something. And then he ended up being here and he loves it now. So you just got to have that drive if you want to be anywhere, really.
I think, absolutely. You hit it on the head in terms of, passion. And I think you also have to have an open mind, right? Like if you kind of put, yourself in a one track and don't make use of opportunities. My path, if you asked me when I was your age, I knew from a very young age, I absolutely wanted to be a doctor. And we can talk about why that was, or I at least knew I wanted to be in healthcare. But if you asked me, did I ever see myself being an advanced, interventional gastroenterologist? I would have been like, what's that? I don't even know what that is. So I agree. Keep an open mind and be passionate.
Those are two key points because think about it. A lot of people, I feel like they kind of fall into what their parents want them to do. So then they end up being so narrow-minded and just tunnel vision on one thing instead of keeping an open mind, which is why also we're talking to many different people from many different industries to be able to keep that open mind and to be able to explore. And I feel like your story is one that we were really excited to discuss because of all the different things you've done and the way you've just kept your mind open. So I really do admire that about you and how you've gotten to this point.
Well, thank you. And I think it's great. You're doing essentially an amazing virtual career fair that reaches tons of people. I wish I had had access to something like this when I was growing up. And I'm happy my kids have access to things like this now.
Yeah, so talking about open minds, let's take it back to the high school days where your mind was probably the most open out of all of the years. Who were you back then? Did you have it like all figured out together or was it kind of just built over time?
So I knew I wanted to be a physician and at least in healthcare, probably starting from maybe my middle school years. And that's young.
Wow.
Many people do not know. But the reason I knew I wanted to be, let's say, in a broad term is science, is I absolutely knew that something I found fascinating and I could spend hours and hours looking into was like the human body, right? Even to this day, it never ceases to amaze me the things that the human body is capable of, all the little scientific minutia, and how when one thing can go wrong, it's like a domino effect. But both of my parents emphasized for me and my brother that education is everything, right? You can have passion, you can have dedication, you can be hardworking. It's what builds your future. So going from my middle school years into my high school years, I knew two things. I knew that I was going to so I started learning classical Indian dance called Bharatanatyam at the age of 5.
Mm.
I knew I loved Bharatanatyam. I knew I loved Bollywood. I knew I loved any kind of like cultural kind of aspect of dance. So I knew that was going to be one of my biggest extracurriculars. And I really built upon that in high school. And then in high school, I really built upon the fact that I absolutely loved biology, loved science, and I took different opportunities to kind of explore that angle. One of the things I knew is it's always different when you're looking kind of from the outside in. You have to kind of get a feel for what you want to do and really kind of, hit the, ground with the boots on. So I volunteered a lot at Robert Wood Johnson. It was very close to my house. Volunteered in the ER, volunteered at the front desk, volunteered even as a patient transporter, just chatting with people and getting a, view of what the ER is. Now it's a little bit different. What you see on TV, by the way, in professions is, you could see all these things like house and, ER and it kind of gives you a little idea, but you can't use just that, right? They
Yeah.
glamorized Hollywood version of any kind of career. So you kind of have to make sure that you spend a little time exploring different aspects of it. I did a lot of research with an OBGYN in high school about maternal fetal, about mom and baby. So maternal fetal is the
Huh?
medical name, diseases and things that happen during pregnancy. I didn't just want to be a doctor. I wanted to also have a professional life, but in addition to that, a social life, a family life. And so those are things that you have to take into consideration as well. And, that's kind of how I eventually went from high school to the next step, which was college, into working a little bit more solidly towards med school.
Yeah, you also mentioned that your parents early on were telling you that education is so important. Did you kind of feel that pressure to be exceptional in that range while also trying to push yourself to become a professional and being a doctor or in the
I
medical?
don't, surprisingly, my mom and dad actually never cared more about grades. They cared about effort. So I think the drive for, to this day, my friends and family make fun of me being like, okay, you don't need an A plus, like you're done with that aspect of life. I think that drive to, like you mentioned, maybe do summa cum laude or go above and beyond, that might have just been me and, maybe perhaps my ego being like, I can be the best. But my parents per se never, they cared about effort, meaning that if you did something, you put your 100% into it. If you get the outcome, great. If you don't get the outcome, in a way, figure out what caused the setback. There's a lot to be said and learned from, I don't want to call it failures, but by not achieving what you wanted to the first time around. There's two ways to look at that. People could either get discouraged and be like, oh, well, maybe I should think of something else. Or I kind of took that and internalized. And I think in college, what you're seeing on my resume is I said, I am just as good as any of these people that got into 7-year program. I am going to go above and beyond and prove myself, both to myself and the world. And then that made me get into med school. So I think some of that drive that you were talking about came from not necessarily a failure, but by a setback. And I think that's important in life. It's not what you sometimes do with opportunities. It's also what you do when you don't get an opportunity and how to make the best of it and move forward.
For sure. I feel like everyone kind of has those moments where they set back, like have a setback where it's like, man, I could have done this, but it didn't work out. But I feel like real part of life is how you respond to that, not as much the challenge that you're faced with, because a lot of people will just sit back and just be sad about it. And it's that select group of people that, like you, for example, that'll just come back and fight back with motivation, with the drive to actually become better and to prove those haters wrong. And I feel like that's what's really going to make people stand out, especially in today's world, just your ability to fight back and not just sit there and just cry about it. And I feel like that's something that you did that set the bar high for a lot of people because you didn't just take no for an answer and you fought back and really proved yourself.
Yeah, minor setback equals a major comeback.
Yeah.
I like that. I'm going to use that. No, but you're absolutely right. And I think at every moment, you always kind of take a step back and reevaluate, whether that's in college or whether that's in med school, about where your life goals are, what you're doing, what you're achieving, and also making use of those opportunities, right? So get an opportunity that comes your way, like even this podcast, for example, you guys asking me here, I was like, great, I'm going to take use of this opportunity to kind of see if I can help just one other person figure it out, or give one little piece of advice to someone that might help them along the way. Or it's always good to keep that open mind and take that jump. But yeah, I do think another thing as you're going through life and professional reevaluation and career choices is you always have to, one, make use of what you have, and two, try to figure out if something didn't work out, what could you have done differently?
Yeah. For sure. That raises a question for me. And like, do you believe street smarts are more important than book smarts? Because I feel like when you're talking to somebody, if you're more if that person's more book smart, I feel like they wouldn't really be able to kind of talk and have a normal conversation if they're like completely book smart. But if they're also very street smart, I don't feel like they'd have the knowledge to kind of back up what they're saying. So what's your opinion on that? Because that's something that I'm always conflicting with. Like, is it street smarts that are more important or book smarts that are more important at the end of the day?
That's a great question. So I think and you're probably not going to like my answer, is that I think they're both equally important in certain professions and certain aspects of life. And in some things, it may not be as important. So for example, there's plenty of careers, let's say even within the healthcare field, where you can be just book smart. You don't really need to be street smart, and you will thrive professionally. And those are sort of aspects of medicine where maybe you're not having a face-to-face encounter. And again, I've met plenty of amazing personable radiologists and pathologists, but just thinking like right off the box. But in terms of like my profession, when I'm interacting half and half with patients all day and doing procedures and need the knowledge set and need the personality to be able to interact, I think it's almost important that I have an equal amount of both street smarts and books, versus someone who is out you know, in the world and interviewing people and, not necessarily married to like a knowledge aspect of their career. I think for them, street smarts is going to be way more important than book smarts, right? So I think you have to develop both skills. I do worry a little bit with the digital age. And, now I'm going to kind of date myself and sound old. I think a huge skill that people have to cultivate a little bit more is speaking one on one, or not looking at your phone every 3 minutes when you're having a conversation, or be able to hold a conversation without being fixated on social media or text messages, right? Because again, some of that is street smart, some of that is interaction. Some of the skills that you have to absolutely have are those interpersonal skills. And it usually, most careers need some type of interpersonal skills. You can't just be book smart.
What would you say to a teenager that's interested in the medical field right now, but isn't really willing to bet on it?
I think that's great. I would say, I think knowing what you kind of like and knowing what you're unsure of is half the battle, right? So it's
Yeah.
great. If someone came to me and, for example, I have every now and then, it has to be planned well in advance. It has to go through certain school systems, but I have those people that come and work with me and shadow me a day in the office and things like that. And they're kind of like science. They kind of like medicine. They like biomedical engineering, or they like the healthcare, administration aspect of it. I say, just get your feet wet. Take a second, try to get one foot in the door, see if you can shadow. And the more exposure you get to a field, the more you know you want to do this or don't want to do this. And so, again, it's okay to be unsure. It's okay to be not 100% certain of what that involves, but you just have to try to take whatever opportunity you can to either solidify that and say, maybe I do want to move forward, or you know what, I like medicine, but I like the hospital administration. And maybe I'm going to go into the business side of it. Or, I like healthcare, but part of my passion is, I'm not exactly interested in the physician aspect. I'm interested in the nursing aspect. Medicine is so different these days, guys. It's gone are the days of just being like a doctor, or just being a nurse, or just being, this part of the hospital. There are so many different aspects where I feel like a lot of people don't even know where you can go to physician, you can go to PA school, physician assistant, you can become a nurse practitioner, you can become a certified, nurse anesthetist, a CRNA. You can, go into medicine and then do a separate degree in business administration and become part of the hospital administration. You can, become part of a private super group. And these are terms I'm just throwing on you just so, maybe your listeners can be like, oh, what's that? And maybe I'll look this up. There's a lot of different aspects that you can do within one field. You just have to kind of keep your eyes peeled. And it's much more easy in today's digital age where now you can,
Yeah.
Google and chat GPT things. We didn't have that luxury, right? So I think the careers are, you know, a little bit different now. They're a little bit changing. They might change even more, give it another decade or two with the advent, of, AI. But it's important to keep, that perspective saying that, hey, I'm not 100% committed, but I'm passionate about this. Let me see if this works out.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
also
and I
feel
know.
like it's important to have those shadowing opportunities because you said ChatGPT is here and same with Google, but I think it's just different when you're shadowing others to get that real life experience because we shadowed Judge Dedia in the Edison Municipal Court. And personally, I didn't like it. I think Shaylin liked it a little bit. And I just feel like it's important to get that exposure because you can see what you really want to do or what you don't want to do.
Yeah, and when we went to go shadow at first, I thought I was not gonna like it at all, and I thought it was gonna be so boring. But when we actually walked through those doors into the court, I was genuinely shocked because I didn't know that was gonna happen, like all the things she would do. Because when I searched up like what a judge does on the municipal court, that is not what it said. So as Sean said, that's why going in person to shadow is important.
Yeah, and that's where the real life connection kind of comes in because as you said, Dr. Sundarajan, like when you're looking on movies and stuff on the media, it's completely different from real life. They just kind of stereotype it to the point where it's just becomes unrealistic and not what really happens. And so that's why I kind of also believe that shadowing is super important all throughout life because it allows you to keep your eyes peeled, as you said, and it also allows for you to get your own perspective on the work that actually goes on in that industry.
And I think, it's impossible to shadow everyone and get a glimpse into everything, but talking to people, right? Like, when
Yeah.
you are very different being a middle schooler, being like a young adult in high school, I think every opportunity you get, you just have to learn to talk to people, being not just like, hey, how are you? What do you do? Right? Like, get a glimpse of, oh, so tell me about that. Or the art of talking to people also is something I definitely encourage high schoolers to make use of. That's an opportunity in a way. It's an indirect shadowing, right? When you meet somebody or you meet one of your parents' friends, or or you're doing this podcast, you get a glimpse into like, hey, so I don't even know what is a gastroenterologist. Tell me. Or I always chuckle because when students come and shadow me, I don't know what they expect, but I tell them, I'm like, you don't need to dress up. Wear comfortable shoes because I am all over the place, and get ready to move. And we take quick breaks and we multitask. And so for example, like if a student came and shadowed me, which I have a student right now actually through their kind of high school shadowing me every Wednesday for a couple of weeks. And, my day every Wednesday is completely different. And I just kind of give them the lowdown. I'm like, all right, today my day starts at 7:30. You get here at 7:15. We're going to be doing procedures. While we're doing procedures, some of that is muscle memory for me at this point, right? Because I've been practicing for more than 15 years. And so we're talking, I'm teaching, in the background, there's some, everything from today's hits to, the Beatles to Pitbull playing in the background, depending on where you're at. We're walking back and forth to see patients. I'm taking them to the back, going over the paperwork, making rounds. I'm like, you're going to get your steps in. I don't know if you have a phone, but you're going to get 10,000. That's not what they expect, right? When they come to a doctor's office, they're thinking, all right, I'm going to go in and out of patients. Or when I'm going in and out of patients' rooms, they see me talking to people. There's many different angles, many different hats a person wears during the day. And I think that glimpse of it is also important. And you can get that you're getting that just from talking to me, right? So you don't have to always 100% shadow every single thing. It's going to be impossible. But talking, I can't overemphasize the aspect of talking to people and talking to as you become a young adult, like kind of picking people's brains and finding out from your parents, hey, what does this person do, or what does that person do, or do you think you can get me to talk to them, like put them in contact with me for 5 minutes? And most adults would be thrilled to talk to you about what they do for 4 to 5 minutes, or 10, 15 minutes at least, to even see
Mhm.
if that's something you're interested in. I hope you're kind of doing that in high school, right? Through different clubs and activities. I can't overemphasize that as well. High school is amazing because you get to kind of get an opportunity to go visit a club, and then you can turn around and say, hey, maybe I don't want to do that next year, or I don't want to do that next month, right? There's not many parts of your life where you can try one thing for a week or two and be like, all right, I'm out, not for me.
Yeah, and I know you mentioned multitasking is very, very important, and it's even more important in college. And I know you got summa cum laude. I don't know if I said that
Yeah,
right.
you got it perfect. I just laughed because I'm like, oh yeah, I did.
How did your day-to-day work ethic look like in college?
So high school, I think the wave has shifted a little bit. I think high school, clearly studied. I went one foot in the door. So as you know, like I said, I went to TCNJ, and I went into TCNJ not because it was the best school that I got into, right? And again, this is what you have to keep in mind. I tell all my high school students this is, you have to see what is the best fit for you. So right amongst my schools that I was thinking of, which was NYU, UPenn, and TCNJ, people are like, how did you choose TCNJ? I chose TCNJ because I fell in love with the campus, fell in love with the kind of small biology department where, I could see the track record of people that went to TCNJ as a pre-med student and they got into med school was very, very high. And I think part of that was because it was a small college campus. I didn't have to compete with grad students, and they had a personal vested interest that if you were a good student to get you into med school, right? So my choice into TCNJ, I went hitting the ground and that I am going to med school. I think everyone's different. I clearly had a great college experience, but a lot of my college life, and I finished, yeah, yes, you can put the nerd sign behind me, is I went into the TCNJ with a lot of AP credits. And so I finished college in 3 years. And again, I think that worked a little bit to my advantage because med school was 4 years. My residency training was 3 years. Fellowship was 3 years. So you do the math, right? I had a long, long road ahead of me to begin with. And this is not to scare people off, but I would spend 6 a.m., 7 a.m. in the morning between working and classes, and 7, 8 p.m. at night studying. And, while some of my friends did go off to, New York City or Philly and, have a party or go to a party, I did take a step back in my early 20s. And I was like, you know what? I have to really, cellular and molecular biology, I need that A+ because I want that professor to give me a recommendation letter. So some of it is a trade-off. You do give up a certain aspect of things if you choose some of the harder professional careers. They are competitive. But was I absolutely just with my head in a book? No. Like I just told you, all my extracurriculars.
Mhm.
I made sure that I was a part of my campus. I made sure that, I was contributing. And honestly, most careers and professional schools, you mentioned book smarts and street smarts, most schools do not want to just see book smarts, right? They don't want to see that you just got hundreds on every single test. They want to see what is it about you that's going to make you unique. So I think that's really, really important to cultivate that aspect of self, of like that self identity. Like, who are you?
Yeah, and when you were at TCNJ in your third year when you graduated, you got the Alpha Omega Alpha Honor Society, which is a top honor in medicine. Was that in TCNJ or was that in Robert Wood Johnson?
It was in Robert Wood, and I'm actually impressed that you did your research and looked that up. Yes, again, my brother makes fun of me to this day. He's like, "Oh my God, you were such a nerd. You got Alpha, Beta, Alpha." So in med school, again, I was with about 125 or 115 at least medical students, and, sometimes you come in and, you know, you're probably seeing this at this phase of your life. I came in with undergrads to Robert Wood who were like, oh, I'm from Brown, and oh, I'm from Harvard. And I'm like, oh, I'm from TCNJ. And they're like, what's that? I'm like, the College of New Jersey. Oh, where is that? In New Jersey? Yes, the College of New Jersey, right? So you come in to med school and you're with, again, a different stage of life, all these different aspects. And, the Alpha, Mega, Alpha, I did work my butt off to get that. I will not lie. It's an honor given to I don't even remember the number. I think it's given to about 6 out of the less than 10. I definitely know it's less than 10.
Oh, wow.
Less than 10 out of the 100 and something med students that you're with, and it's based on grades. It's based on how you did on what was called the flex exams. It's based on, recommendations, what you contributed to the school community.
And you did a lot of different things in college with the different honors you got. But in the long run, do you think those had an effect on your professional life, or were they just titles that you still carry on to use today?
I think some of that had an effect in my professional life because I really had to work hard. So I think the work ethic to this day has a effect in my professional life. I mean, I don't think the titles, I think summa cum laude, like I said, I think it just helped for the next phase of life. I can tell you I see patients and they probably don't even look at my, CV online or my work website. It's by word of mouth. And one patient tells another patient, hey, I saw this doctor in this practice or that doctor in this practice, go to them. They fixed my gut. At a certain point, I think the titles don't add that much to your day to day life, but I think it's how you got the titles and that work ethic and persona that might help me in today's day to day life.
Yeah, and when you were in college, at any point, did you ever feel like, oh, I don't think this is gonna work out for me? Or did you just keep grinding and working hard?
I think I spent a good amount of my college years, really, really like nervous to be like, oh my God, I already didn't get into the 7 year once and I now have to go for round two. So I have to get into med school. I need to do what it takes. But there's always that question mark, right? Like life is a big, big question mark. And so I think a
Yeah.
little bit of that unknown is, if it's too much of an unknown, it can feed into anxiety and be a detriment to you. But a little bit of that unknown helps drive you and push you forward, right? You have to have that balance. So I do think in college, I made the best use. It wasn't always in the back of my mind, oh no, what about med school? But I think my year that I was applying, you take an exam for med school, you still to this day take something called the MCAT, the MCAT. If you think the SATs and ACT are evil, the MCATs or law school LSATs are a whole different ballgame, right? It's like evil to the
Yes.
exponential number. And so that was a little nerve wracking. So yeah, I think a little bit of college always was like, oh my God, am I gonna make it? You got to tell yourself, I'm gonna make it. You'll get there. You may not get there the way you thought you were gonna get there. Or like I said, if you asked me if I was gonna be a gastroenterologist, and we can talk about that too if you want, like never, but you get there. And you have to tell yourself and you have to believe in yourself that you're gonna get there. And that's a big part of it.
So, I mean, now you're at a point in your life where your training's done, your fellowships are done. You're now the director of advanced endoscopy, right? Is that how you say it?
Endoscopy.
Endoscopy, yep.
Endos-
Your Hervey
Endos-
Center.
yes. So I just want to, I know your days are very different and very hectic every single day, but just walk me through one day. I don't know. Let's just say your most hectic day. Well, walk me through a day in the life of
Um,
that.
I'll give you a little snippet. So, for example, let's just take like 2 days ago, right? The most recent. So gastroenterology, right? Very big, broad specialty. My practice is so I'm very lucky. I'm part of an amazing group called Red Bank Gastroenterology. It's out of Red Bank, and we're part of a bigger super group called Allied Digestive Health. And so I kind of have like this amazing hybrid model where I'm a private practitioner. I'm also a physician owner. So talk about the business aspect of medicine. I'm also, a partner and physician owner in my practice, whole nother different ballgame. And then I see patients, the sick patients, end up at Riverview Medical Center, right? Usually my day will start like if I'm scoping at 7:30, and I'm talking about, every 25 to 30 minutes, there is a procedure. So do the math from 7:30 to 11:30. I am doing a procedure, doing the paperwork, doing the procedure note, going out, running, talking to my last patient, going over the procedure details, coming back
Oh,
into the
God.
room, doing my next procedure note, go talk to the last patient, give them the details, come back, right? We call it the revolving door. So I am doing laps for every 30 minutes from 7:30 to like 11:30. And then
Five.
and so, right, that's what I mean. And in between all this, I'm fielding phone calls, seeing texts, making sure the hospital's reaching me about patients. So, from my aspect, and not all professional physicians' offices run like this, right? But the way our group runs is you get it. So, for my patient afternoon, that involves me going and seeing a patient, doing the intake, making tests, diagnosis, come back, write the note, and again, this revolving door over and over again from 1:30 in the afternoon to like 4:30 in the afternoon. If it's the hospital, That's a whole different thing. Some of my half days, either in morning or afternoons, involve hospital. You do the higher risk patients there. Again, lots of procedures. You're seeing patients on the floor. So when you get admitted, you either in the ER, you get discharged from the ER to go home and see your doctor as an outpatient, or you get admitted because you're sick and then you need inpatient medical care. And a hospital day, it can start at a time, but the end time is a complete big question mark. You anticipate it's going to end around 4:35, but Lord knows, and you can ask my family, when I say 5, they're like, all right, 5 is going to be 6, or 6 is going to be 6:30, or I'm like that white rabbit in Alice in Wonderland. I'm constantly late, right? Like I'm always late because it never goes according to plan, right? So hopefully that answers your question. Is a typical day is very, very fulfilling, but can be very, very chaotic, but you have to be organized and methodical about it.
Yeah, and what is one sentence of a lesson that you would say to every student that wants to go into this field?
Um, let's see. To anyone that wants to pursue medicine and become a physician, I would say be ready for a lifetime of learning.
Yeah, for sure. It's also like 5-hour days, so it's a
Yeah.
lot of time commitment too. But our final question for you that we ask every guest at the end of each episode is, what is your definition of success, and how has that changed over the many years that you've been through your whole journey?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think in life, every, let's say, 5 years, I think the definition of what is success slightly changes. But ultimately, I think, taking a step back and when you're finally, let's say, landed in your profession and have a career, success is really defined for me as being skilled at what you do, being good at what you do, recognizing what you know and what you don't know, being very happy with what you do, giving and providing, a living for your family, right? That's also why we go into professions. It's also, you need a livelihood financially. You have to be sort of savvy and be comfortable. And success for me right now is also, defined as being able to give back. Like there is nothing better than truly, truly like that I can say helping someone and being able to come home and say, hey, I made a difference in that person's life today.
That's a very strong definition of success, which I very much agree with. But at the end of every episode, we have to turn the tables. So, Dr. Sundarajan, do you have any questions for us?
Yeah, actually I do. So I want to know, all three of you go to Homedale High School. So
Mhm.
in terms of career and explorations, what is some of the opportunities now that typical high school students have in terms of, what was your motivation to start this podcast? Tell me how you got to this point. What was your journey to get here?
So, I mean, it was a pretty long story, but in short, it was kind of someone asked us what we wanted to do. We had no clue. So then we started thinking about all the different careers that were out there, which kind of inspired us to start this podcast to kind of discover the different career paths out there to maybe kind of narrow our choices down.
And also, some of our friends also didn't know what they wanted to do. So we were just trying to help them by helping ourselves too by starting this podcast.
Okay, great. And do you guys have exposure to what's the typical type of career fairs that high school students have options for in high school? Is that even a thing? Or is it kind of like you just have to figure it out?
We all just went to a college fair at Brookdale Community College, and there were so many people. Like, if you went to one school, for example, UF, there was like a huge line that looped around the basketball court. It was crazy. So I feel like just sitting here just helps us expand our horizons in a more efficient way.
Yeah, and getting the detailed responses help us understand more of what you actually do instead of getting, oh, we do this and that, and then that's it.
Okay, well, great. Yeah, I mean that's amazing. It's very, very amazing about the things that you guys are getting. If you, I mean, I have to say I'm impressed with your eloquency and interpersonal skills because, like I mentioned, I think something that we all have to work on, and especially in today's age, it's so easy to be able to just text someone instead of picking up the phone and talking to someone. Right? It's a very
Yeah.
different skill set. So I want to say, I'm impressed, and I hope you guys, keep it up. And I think what you're doing here is, great. Like I said, I wish I had access to this, and I'm happy that my my kids have access to this. Did you guys learn anything today, like about the field of gastroenterology that you had not known before? Or did I surprise you in any way today?
I was surprised by like the day in the life of what you actually do.
Yeah, that's crazy.
There's so much that goes into your profession. I thought it was just like you walk in and out of different procedures and then you get long enough breaks that your mind doesn't get overwhelmed, but it sounds so overwhelming.
I was shocked by the journey that it took because it takes a long, long time to get to where you are today.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
In terms of overwhelming, I'm just going to say that I think it sounds overwhelming, but you have to understand that when you've been doing this with muscle memory, it's called, for over 15 years, this
Yeah.
is to me like when I watch people play sports and, change angles of the ball, to me, that's overwhelming, right? So overwhelming, I just want you guys to make sure that you realize as high school students, when you're good at something, it stops becoming overwhelming. And what your overwhelming is completely different to someone else. So hopefully, I don't want you to leave thinking it's overwhelming, but it is a lot. And any profession, what you do from a day to day, I'm glad that you get a chance to tell your viewers that it's not as, you know, cookie cutter textbook recipe as it is. It involves a lot of juggling.
Sure.
Yeah. All right. Thank you for joining us on this show.
Thank
Really
you guys
glad
for having me. Thank you.
Yeah, we learned a lot.
You guys can find us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, and everywhere else on social media. Please go follow, like, subscribe, and engage with us. We are the Future 3 Podcast, and we out.
Peace.